Beginning in 1944, the U.S. government decided to use the popularity of the Marine Corps Women's Reserve Band to help raise money for the war. The musicians were sent on 3 war bond tours throughout the country. The women musicians were thrilled with the opportunity to travel and perform. A number of them had dreamed of being professional musicians in a traveling band. Their modus operandi on these tours would be to arrive in a town or city in the morning and lead a patriotic parade, marching and performing through the streets to advertise their presence and inspire the townspeople to buy bonds. In the afternoon or evening, the Women's Marine Band would perform a formal concert in an auditorium or church. Often in the towns and cities, the women were treated like celebrities. Bass drum and string bass player Rhoda Anderson shared her enthusiasm in a letter home to her parents after one well-attended performance in the Pittsburgh Pirates baseball stadium. She wrote, "People come in droves, tens of thousands, to hear us and buy bonds. After playing for a bond rally at Forbes Field in Pittsburgh, we had a police escort, or the crowd would have torn off our clothes. Surely we are the biggest band in the land." Other stories from the women communicated that they were invited to dine with the town's elite and were given the key to the city for their help raising money for the war. After one concert, the audience was so appreciative of the women's work that the band members were invited to dine at the local country club. One wealthy member, John J. Hosey, bought a $10,000 war bond in exchange for the privilege of conducting the women's band in Anchors Away. And he bought another $20,000 war bond to keep Charlotte Plummer's conducting baton. And although in most cases the women were treated as celebrities, there were some hardships when traveling. Lack of money to buy food, marching in high-heeled shoes, having items stolen out of their buses, lack of facilities to properly wash and dry their soot-stained white uniforms, and being called derogatory names simply because they were women who chose to serve their country in the military. Audience members on these tours enjoyed the women's band concerts and often wanted to connect with the musicians before and after their performances. Mothers would share stories of their sons who had lost their lives serving their country, or of the brave daughters who had enlisted. Wives would tell stories of how they missed their husbands or how their children missed their fathers. And veterans would reminisce about their time in the service. In some cases, entire towns were suffering from the unthinkable loss of so many of their young men who had been called to serve. This was the case in one Pennsylvania town. In an interview, bandswoman Jean Loy said she was still moved by the memory of the grieving audience members. She remembered, "On these bond drives, sometimes we'd be in a town that had lost quite a few men. We played an evening concert in a church, and one of the things we played that was surely appropriate was Jesu, joy a man's desiring. When we got through, I was crying, our director was crying, and everybody else was crying. We were told that this town had lost 80% of its young men in a battle in France. It was a sad time."